Hi, you're listening to the Colourworks podcast, a monthly podcast for business owners and managers looking to improve the way that their people work together. We are specialists in people development, with particular applications in team working, leadership, customer service, and organisational culture. We've been going since 2003 and have so far had the pleasure of working with over 100,000 people across the private, public and not-for-profit sectors. Our mission is to create vibrant workplaces in which all people feel valued and get heard, where communication is honest and clear, decision-making timely and robust, and authentic leadership filters throughout the organisation.
Welcome, and thank you for tuning into the Colourworks podcast. My name is James Hampton, and I'll be hosting the show today. My role at the Colourworks is to support our team in designing and delivering solutions based on our clients' needs. I'm here today to explore tracking team performance with Ian Girling, who's the Chief Executive of Dorset Chamber. Ian, it's great to have you on the show.
Hi, James. Thanks very much for having me.
An absolute pleasure, absolute pleasure. Ian, we're just going to dive straight in because just before we started recording, you started to allude to a quite diverse past. Can you tell us how you became the Chief Exec? Take us back in time.
Okay. So, I've been at the Chamber now for 6 years, and I just can't believe where the time's gone. So if I kind of roll back, I'll give you the really quick version. So I was brought up in North Dorset in Shaftesbury, and my father ran his own business. He was a coal merchant. Went through school. I kind of did okay at school. I didn't do fantastically. Did my A-levels and didn't really know where to go from there. I had no career plan as such. And you're quite limited in a place like Shaftesbury as opposed to your options.
Yeah.
And, it's quite disconnected from places like Bournemouth, for example. I kind of thought that I'd quite like to go in the RAF and fly fast jets.
Right.
So I applied to the RAF and fighter pilot selection, and I did quite well. I got through from about 2,000 candidates down to about 35.
Okay.
Went to Biggin Hill for a long weekend for fighter pilot selection. Went through this whole series of tests, which were really difficult, and basically failed on a hearing test. And as soon as you fail, when you're away for 3-4 days, but as soon as you fail a test, you're sent home.
Uh-huh.
I was devastated. So
Sure.
I kind of got measured up for a cockpit and everything while I was there.
Wow.
You kind of get quite excited by it. But so to cut back to the story, so that didn't work. I then probably spent a couple of years working for my father, delivering coal. And helping run a small business, which I have to say was a brilliant experience for me in terms of working with a team.
Where you cut your
and doing something that's really hard work, but you had to work as a team, and I really enjoyed that, and it taught me a lot about culture of working as well. That lasted a couple of years. My dad said, this is really no career for you. You need to go and do something. So I went into accountancy, which was a disaster for me, effectively. It didn't work for me. And I kind of flitted around from job to job, a little bit in accountancy, went to Swindon for a year and worked, came back, went to college for a year, didn't really get on well with the course. And at 23, 24 years old, I just didn't know where I was going really.
Right.
By chance, I landed an interview within the public sector from accountancy, and moving into a big organisation really gave me a structure, and I was able to use some of the skills that I'd learned in accountancy and able to apply those in a large organisation, and that just gave me a really good route through in terms of future opportunities that opened ahead. So, like I said, to the age of about 25, I was kind of faffing around quite a bit.
And crafting your history, crafting your past in those delicate times.
There was quite interesting times. When I kind of moved into accountancy, I moved down to Bournemouth, and I lived in a terrible bedsit in the top of town. I had no money whatsoever. I was desperately lonely. I wanted to go back home to Shaftesbury and live in the family home. I was literally living on the breadline. I was sharing a bathroom with lots of other people in a really rough flat. You can imagine what that was like. And it was really miserable.
Yeah.
I got myself into a lot of debt. Those were the days where banks were really quick to bounce a check on you and so forth.
Yeah.
And I ended up with loads and loads of debt at the age of 22, 23. And I was in a really difficult situation. And I'll kind of never forget those days. And I'll always make sure my children will never have to go through, those sorts of times.
Yeah, sure. So how did you actually get the job as chief exec?
So I'd kind of known the Chamber for a few years. So I'd worked in the training kind of industry, publicly funded training. And I was aware of Dorset Chamber. In fact, the company that I was working for were members of the Chamber. And life was quite good. We were delivering the Business Link contract, which was a fully funded business support program, government support program. The government closed that contract, finished the Business Link service, and that gave us quite a challenge as a business. So I spent a couple of years kind of trying to look at alternative income streams for the company. And during that time, the Chamber was recruiting for a chief executive. I was asked in for a cup of coffee. I certainly wasn't headhunted, and I never say that I was, but I was asked in for a coffee by Peter Scott, who was the chief exec at that time. And Peter and I had a coffee, and I gave it a lot of thought after that meeting, and I decided not to apply for the role.
Okay.
I think for a few reasons. I thought there was a lot of work to do. Truth be known, I was a bit scared of the job as well. I think that was quite a big part of it for me.
Yeah.
It was a big responsibility. It's quite high profile.
Mm-hmm.
You have the responsibility of running a business as well, which I'd not done that as much. I'd worked in businesses, large and small, but I'd not taken sole responsibility for the success of that business.
Yes.
And I didn't apply for the role. They recruited and they appointed, and that lasted a couple of weeks, and they were back to square one. So at this point, I thought maybe there's an opportunity here. Maybe I should have applied. So I talked it through with my wife, and I put an application together for the role. I also kind of did a brief paper on how I saw the business climate at that stage, a bit more than just an application form. And before I know it, I had an interview.
And how did that go?
It went really well. You know, it was a very informal discussion.
Yeah.
Around the challenges the Chamber faced, the opportunities, where it needed to go, kind of my background, my thoughts. And from that, I was called in to give a presentation to the board. What I didn't realise was I was one of 12 people that went through a first interview. And then when I was asked to go in and talk to the board, I was one of three, and I was the very last person they were seeing that day. And I kind of went in, and I was just really honest with them. I thought a lot about the approach that I wanted to take in that interview, but I wanted to just be honest, be myself. I didn't want to give a really highly scripted presentation, but I did want to make sure that I covered key points. So I said to the board, I said, look, if you can give me 20 minutes, I could just get the points over that I really want, that I think are important for you to listen to, and then perhaps we can discuss those afterwards. So kind of almost just be quiet and listen to me for a while. And I gave, I gave them my honest view. I gave them my view of the challenges the organisation faced, the opportunities to improve. I think there was a real need for modernisation, fantastic, loyal, strong customer base, but actually that organisation needed to go forward into the 21st century and become a modern, relevant chamber of commerce that's really going to be interactive, engaging for all types of businesses. And that's the focus we've had over the last 5-6 years.
And where did that initial vision for the chamber come from in that presentation that you did?
Do you know what? The presentation I did actually came quite easily to me. I kind of wrote down the points that I wanted to make before. I didn't spend hours and hours rehearsing in front of the mirror, etc. But I kind of wrote down the points that I wanted to make, and actually it came quite easily. So I literally had bullet points to talk from.
Yeah.
And I kind of knew that the image needed to be much more relevant, much more current, perhaps attract a younger generation, be more focused towards mixed equality, if you like. We needed much stronger female representation. Mm-hmm. We needed to make sure we were attracting businesses from all sectors. It wasn't a club for old boys in suits, effectively. And we've been working really hard to come away from that image and create an organisation that's really fit for the 21st century.
So something that was completely revitalised and fit for a new trend of business owners coming through.
Yeah, revitalisation is really important. You can't turn around. We had a really good membership, loyal membership. So you have to treat those members with respect, of course, and deliver what they need you to. You can't suddenly completely switch as an organisation. But we recognised that we needed to change to move forward and attract those new businesses whilst keeping the existing ones.
Perfect. So what does a day in the life of the chief exec look like?
Well, it's really varied. So some days more exciting than others, as with any job. So one day I could be sat in my office writing a board report, dealing with spreadsheets, etc. I try not to do too much of that. I do like to have some thinking time. So I spend a lot of my time talking to people in the office. I spend quite a lot of time going out to visit our members. And I have the opportunity to talk about their challenges as a business, their opportunities. ask them what we can do for them as a business, really try to understand what our customers are looking for. I spend a lot of time in the chamber offices, kind of blue sky thinking, talking with my team. We spend a lot of time just quite unstructured, just wandering around, and that's where some of our best thoughts come from. This morning, I spent time with my events team talking about events, and we had an absolutely fantastic discussion this morning. Some really exciting ideas coming through. A couple of weeks ago, I was with Connor Burns for a day, obviously the local MP, but also now an international trade minister. So I was with Connor, talking to businesses about export opportunities. We could be hosting VIPs occasionally down into Dorset, going out on visits. I could be doing a podcast.
Very well, might add as well.
Thank you.
Very well.
Quite a lot of radio interviews, so I probably do one radio interview every week, I expect.
Yeah.
I could be speaking at events. Week before last, I was speaking at an event around the value of apprenticeships. Week before last, I was at another event talking about climate change.
So a really varied role.
Do you know what? It's a really fantastic job.
So what makes it really fantastic for you? You know, what sets your hair on fire without obviously it being on fire about that role?
There's lots of things, really. I think one of the great things is we're a small business, and that can give you agility and mobility. And we're not locked into huge processes. We've got the freedom to operate the way we want to. We can be very driven by the needs of our business. We've deliberately kept the chamber not over-reliant on public sector grants and public sector funding. So our customer always remains our business, as opposed to, say, a local authority, etc. If we loaded ourselves with those kind of programs, it's quite a safe place to be, if you like, from an income perspective. But actually your focus becomes serving that customer, not the businesses within the community.
Yeah, of course.
So I really enjoy the sense of achievement. I really enjoy leading my team. I really enjoy delivering success. And we've seen some really fantastic things over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And just a real sense of pride in what the organisation achieves. And that freedom really to operate the way that we want to. I have a great relationship with my board. You had Liz Willingham in. You've just spoken to Liz quite recently.
Yeah.
So Liz is my boss, if you like. She's a non-executive director. And I have a really great relationship with my board. Supportive, but challenging. You know, we're all very honest. And I feel I have good support, both from my board, from our ambassadors, and also my team around me as well.
Yeah, brilliant. Would you describe the board as a team?
Absolutely.
Great. And you mentioned that honesty that's come into play. So six years down the line, loving what you do. You've had the opportunity to build a team upwardly and downwardly around you. You've mentioned honesty. How have you gone about building those team relationships, both at board level and within the chamber?
So within the chamber, if you like, downwards, that's probably not the right word to use, but the peers that I'm working with my colleagues on a daily basis.
Sure.
So we try to build those relationships on trust. I try to make sure people have own responsibility of their particular areas. You know, I really believe quite strongly in delegation, and people be able to take pride in ownership of their particular areas and make a real difference. I would like to say that I'm quite consultative, that I ask people for their thoughts on things.
Yeah.
And I may not always do what they say, but quite often it's actually a hybrid. So, you know, I'm leading that organisation, but certainly I don't think my way is always necessarily the right way. I'm very keen to listen to the input of other people, and that could be in dealing with a particular situation. It could be in the wording that we've used in an email. You know, I'm really quite consultative, and I do listen to feedback that I get on the way that we deal with an issue. I'm not asking people how to do things, but actually I think another perspective is always really useful. In terms of our board, we've kind of I asked the board to let me operationally run the business. The board is responsible for defining strategy of the business and taking an overview of, taking responsibility for the overview success of the business. In terms of operational issues, I don't go to the board with those issues. They don't need to be concerned about those types of problems. That's what they employ me to do. And actually just working on that simple basis really makes it quite easy to think about, well, this is what the board talks about and this is what I need to deal with as the chief executive.
Yeah.
And the board meetings are really focused on opportunities that lie ahead, different ways that we can operate. We do all the kind of standard stuff in terms of talking about the finance of the chamber and so forth, and the governance, which is really important to an organisation of ours. But we also spend a lot of time talking about future opportunities, new partnerships that we might deliver, some of the key issues that are facing businesses that we feel we need to champion and be providing support on as well. So kind of good all-round relationships.
Great. So, I mean, this very consultative coaching style of leadership that you have in building a team, where did that come from? Have you had a bad boss in the past, which has made you think that's not the way to do it?
That's a really good question. I've had one terrible boss in my life.
Hopefully they won't be listening.
No, and he's probably not listening. And nice person, not a bad person at all. Just really micromanaged me, and I didn't need to work in the environment where I was micromanaged. I guess one of my first challenges when I kind of stopped faffing around, if you like, and landed a role in the public sector. I was an auditor, working on a small audit team, and I really enjoyed it. And I was working with some nice people, and it was a much bigger organisation, and there was opportunities and there was structure, and it was, they kind of used to go to the pub every week and that sort of thing. So my money doubled overnight, if you like, and it was literally life changing.
Happy days
from where I was living and how I was living in the past.
Yeah,
and my boss, my kind of team manager, went on maternity leave, and really surprisingly for me, I was appointed as manager while she was on that maternity leave, and I was managing an older team, and it was a bit of a surprise appointment for me and for others on the team as well. And how I approached those guys, those people, was really important. That I was younger. I was quite a bit younger than most of them. They had quite a lot of experience as well, and I had to really focus on leading them and getting them to work with me, and me demonstrating that I valued their input and valued their opinion on key issues. So a consultative approach was really important, and to go in and start ordering people around would have just been the worst thing possible, and we wouldn't have got anywhere at all. So I think that kind of consultation is always quite important. I think that shouldn't detract from clear decision making.
Great.
I think that's a really important point. It's not lost on issues. It's actually, could you give me your perspective on this situation? And I think generally the right solution will come through. And the other thing I've learned is not to rush, try and force solutions. If you've got a problem, I think sometimes just think about it, and almost the natural solution will always come to the fore in your mind, and you'll know that's the right solution.
Great. So sometimes when we give a team this consultative approach and this hands-off approach, performance and behaviours can sometimes slide slightly.
Yeah.
No problem with the team as such, but that can happen because we can take our eye off the ball. How do you manage the rigour and process side of building and managing the team?
I think I do believe in empowerment, and I do believe in people taking responsibility, but you have to provide a framework for people to work in.
Yeah.
And you have to provide, you also got to put down your own personal parameters, what's important to you, what's as a leader. And I think you have to be careful that freedom doesn't start to seep in where people are perhaps not seeing as pulling their weight.
Yep.
Some people working harder than others. Equality, the way that you treat people, is quite important as well within an organisation.
Respect.
So I'm quite fastidious around the basic parameters in terms of timekeeping. I expect people to be at work on time. If people start wandering in late, 10 past 9, doesn't go down well with other staff, doesn't lead to a really good working environment. I think the challenge you can be is quite often those people will be there at 5:30, 5:45 in the evening, and other people don't see it.
Yeah.
To a degree, you've got to say, I'm sorry, that's just the way that it is. I also think a clear structure is really important as well. So when I joined, the structure was very, very flat. And I didn't like that flat structure. First of all, it was taking too much of my personal time. and actually people should be empowered to lead particular areas. So we have quite a clear structure in place, and I will really push that those staff work through their managers. I don't create I can't talk to you directly because I'm not your manager, but actually they need to be empowered to take responsibility for their particular area.
Yeah. Own your role, own your department, own your facility.
Yeah, and we're quite small. We're only about 20, 21 people, but there is a structure in there, and I expect that structure to be adhered to.
Sure.
And I expect those managers and those people with responsibility to lead those areas.
Yeah.
I don't really try to get too involved in operational issues. I'm there if I need to be. Obviously, I'm there, and but I'll kind of go to a certain level. But I expect the team to run. I expect that organisation to run it from an operational perspective,
to run itself. How do you? Because when we bring people together, they bring together all of their own egos and behaviours and personalities and desires, emotions and feelings to the table. And on occasions, people won't necessarily let you know when there's an issue within the team.
Yeah.
How do you unearth those issues and make sure that everybody is sharing their problems and speaking their mind? And there's transparency, as you mentioned.
I think you need to create a culture of honesty where people speak, but you certainly don't want to create a culture of negativity and kitchen gossip.
Yeah, water cooler syndrome.
Yeah, it's not good. It's really damaging in any type of business. So, I would expect if staff are unhappy, they would speak to their manager directly if there was a particular issue, or the door is open for people to come and speak to me. But I do not like a gossip culture. It's really damaging.
Yeah.
In any type of organisation. I think your recruitment process is really important in terms of this and getting the right people in. And you can go through some really, really lengthy recruitment processes, but people still really make the wrong appointment.
Yes.
And you see that.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know, to be honest. I think sometimes we can be over technical with recruitment processes. I think you've really got to spend some time chatting to people and get to know them. You can be the most, technically minded, wonderfully talented person in a particular area, but if you're not going to fit from a personality wise perspective with your team, I think it's really important that you can spot that.
So attitude can sometimes outweigh skill.
I would say definitely. And I personally take a lot of focus on that when we're recruiting people. Their interpersonal skills, the way that they interact with other people are really important. They must be able to work as a team. I'm not after people that want to take all the glory themselves. They've got to be able to understand a shared vision. They've got to be in line with, with our hopes and aspirations on where we want to be. They've got to believe in customer service the way that we do and really wanting to do the best. Anyone with their own huge agenda that's not going to work with staff, it's going to disregard those values is not really going to work for us.
I know you spend a lot of time working on your values and with any team, in any team environment, direction and purpose is obviously essential because a team need to know what direction to row in together. But underneath, I know you've spent time, as I mentioned, with your values with the Chamber. How are they being brought to life within your team environment internally and with your membership of 700?
We try to have the same values. We do have the same values internally as we like to demonstrate with our members. We respect each other as colleagues. We need to work with each other in a certain way, and we expect certain standards to be adhered to, and we expect those to be adhered to when we're working with our members, with our partners, with our stakeholders, or any organisation that we have a touch point with. We've kind of, the approach I've always taken is one of the main points that I always made in my interviews for the role, and I still believe is really important, is we must deliver value for money to our members. Yeah. People won't join the Chamber unless they see value for money. Of course,
yeah.
And we need to make sure that we're delivering that. Part of that is making sure that the member engages with us so they do get the value for us. The worst thing that can happen for us is someone joins, they don't really engage, and they won't see the value in that case, and then they'll leave the Chamber. But we want to make sure that they're having a good level of touch points with the Chamber, and we're doing the very best that we can. So my focus is that we will do the best that we can in everything that we do, in the way that we run our events, the way we deliver training, the way we communicate with people, the way that we develop and improve our services, the way that we respond to feedback. And I think there is a really strong shared culture within the chamber that we will do the best we can for our customers, and we will always appear professional. And even if sometimes we could be challenged on the way that we've delivered something, we would never go back and say, well, hang on, that's not quite right. We didn't do it that way. Actually, we'll say, that's fine. Okay, we'll learn from that. And I think the team, I listen to my team and I see the way that they deal with people, and I listen to their phone calls and the way we greet people at reception. And I feel really proud that we've got a team that really believes in that value of just doing the best we can. And that's really important.
Yeah, and that's the team culture, isn't it? When you can just listen into what's going on around the halls and the conversations that are taking place, and people are living and breathing those values, and that's how the culture is really created. It's largely unconscious, and when people come together, that is the culture. And
and I think pride and ownership is really important in here. What's great is to be able to see someone produce a piece of work and say, what do you think of this? How, and actually you say, that is absolutely fantastic. That is great. I didn't know you were doing that. That is really good. Look how we can use this. And people genuinely feel that they have an input into the way that we're operating as a business. And I think celebrating that success is really important, but allowing people, recognizing achievement where it takes place.
Agreed. And, on that note, what would be the 3 top tips from the Dorset Chamber's chief exec for new execs building a team?
That's a really good question. And I could probably sit there and write a book for you. I think what I would say is give people freedom to shine. You need to be there to guide people and give people broad parameters, but don't go down that micromanagement type route. Allow people to use their creative thinking and really bring their talents to the table. I think give people defined responsibility, even though you are allowing, you're giving allowing is the wrong word, giving a broad remit. Actually define the responsibility, make sure they understand what they're supposed to be delivering. And I think really respect in the way that they deal with their colleagues, the way they deal with their peers. I think upwards management is really important as well as downwards management.
It's 2 ways.
I think lots of people really miss that one.
2-way street.
Yeah, manage your manager is really important. And also, we haven't really touched on this, but, don't confuse leadership and management as the same issue.
Yeah,
that's really important.
Absolutely. Brilliant. So just as a recap, we've got freedom, roles, responsibilities, and respect as the top 3.
Yeah, I think so.
Gems.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Fantastic. So just a couple of hard-fire questions that we've been asking a few of the guests here. So what would be your must-read recommendation? What's the book that's hit you hard?
Do you know what? I've got a confession to make here. I'm not a really big reader of management books. If you're looking for management books, I'm not a big reader. So I'm just, books in general. So it's completely off track in terms of career in the chamber. I'm just reading The Kid, which was about a young guy in the 70s. It's a true story. He's written his autobiography about the most horrendous life he's led in terms of domestic abuse and through the care system, etc. It's quite a harrowing story, but it's a true story, ultimately quite uplifting. And the book I've just finished was actually about the Kursk submarine. Do you remember the Kursk went down?
Oh, yeah.
In the year 2000, the Kursk went down and there was a big diplomatic row over whether or not the sailors on that the submariners could be rescued. And the Norwegians and the British Navy tried to rescue the sailors that were on that. They were in a certain chamber on the submarine. And by the time they got to rescue them, they were all dead. Yeah. And it's quite an interesting story.
It's a quite deeply emotional books that's going on there, Ian.
Yeah, I quite like to read fact.
Yeah.
I quite like to read about history.
All right, just to lighten the mood a little bit, the 8-year-old Ian, what was your dream job? What did you want to do?
Do you know, I don't have a clue. I probably just wanted to have lots of money, have a nice car, and be quite happy. I was brought up, my father worked really hard, worked really long hours in a small business.
Yeah.
he was kind of determined that I wouldn't have to work like he did, as hard as he did with the hours. He lived away from home for a year, setting up a business, while I lived up in Swindon with my mother. I just wanted to kind of do the best that I can, really, and enjoy my life. I think life is so important in terms of enjoyment. Life is over so quickly. And I just, I've considered myself incredibly lucky over the last few years.
Great. It seems that you've always pitched for a high-flying job, though, but from RAF to chief exec.
I've always just kind of done my best, really. You have to try and push. You have to push yourself, don't you? You have to push yourself all the time. And I have pushed myself into positions that are quite challenging, not easy to do.
The stretch is important.
Quite daunting. Stretching yourself is really important. A few years ago, I had to give a speech with David Cameron when he was Prime Minister with 20 minutes notice attached to that. That was quite scary.
At least it avoided the sleepless night.
That's true. Standing backstage before you walk out and open up the Dorset Business Awards with 700 people in the audience, and you've got to talk for 6 or 7 minutes and get their attention as well is quite nerve-wracking when you stand and peek from behind the curtain. And I believe, I just believe in pushing yourself and not pushing yourself to areas that are ridiculously uncomfortable, but actually just stretching yourself, I think, as you put it.
Couldn't agree more. So on that note, Ian, with regards to stretch, how's the Dorset Chamber stretching themselves this year? What can we expect?
Well, we've got some really exciting stuff coming up. A really key role for us is campaigning on key issues. We're working closely with the local authorities and the bids on town centre type issues. Certainly on a national level, we're really concerned about the impact of business rates on businesses. So that's something we're really campaigning on at the moment. We've got a really exciting new training programme, more details on that to follow, but we think that's going to be really useful for businesses of all types and all sizes. We've, of course, got a really exciting new website coming from Digital Storm, who do a great job for us. That's really going to give our members an enhanced experience and be really strong in terms of members raising their profile in different ways through the website.
Brilliant.
And a really important part of what we do is international trade. So over the last 12 months, we've helped businesses export £280 million worth of goods overseas. We're really helping businesses gear up for Brexit. And we really want to encourage businesses to be maximising those opportunities with international trade. And the Chamber can really help with that as well.
Brilliant. So if any Dorset businesses want to hear more about any of these new strategies and the support that's on offer from the Chamber, how would they get in touch with you?
So very easy. They can just Google Dorset Chamber and we'll come up, or give us a ring on 01202 714 800 and we'll be happy to help you.
Brilliant. Ian, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show today and hearing your insight around high-performing teams and your journey into this leadership role. If you'd like to understand more about tracking team performance, which is a Colourworks solution towards unearthing hidden team issues through our team performance indicator, which looks at a team through 16 areas of high performance, log on to www.thecolourworks.com and hit the solutions tab and you'll find us there. Ian, once again, thank you so much.
Thanks very much, James.
We hope you found this episode insightful and interesting. If you want more information on today's topic, then head to thecolourworks.com and look for our Solutions tab on the main menu. If you want to be notified of new podcast releases and other useful people development resources, then please subscribe to our mailing list and follow us on social media at The Colourworks. We're active on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter and LinkedIn, and we look forward to seeing you over there. Do you want to see the impact we can have on your organisation? Then get in touch through our website or email the team on inquiries@thecolourworks.com. Thanks for listening. See you next time.